Welcome everyone to a tutorial series I'm doing for Iota, and in this series probably gonna be a 5-part series, and I'm gonna do a light wallet, well, sort of light wallet, a wallet, and then eventually incorporate that with ASP.NET. So to start out, I'm gonna go ahead and start a new project. We're going to want a Windows form application, and we'll call it Iota Wallet. All right. So it might take a second for that to get created. And then we have our nice little window here. And let's go to the code. Now we will need to get the code to incorporate. So you go to GitHub/Iota Ledger. That link will be in the description. And then you can just go ahead and scroll down till you see the C#, which is this library here. And then over here, clone, download. You can download zip. And it goes here, and then we'll just open that, and I already did it, I already extracted it, but for the sake of the tutorial, we'll just extract it here, make sure it's up to date. Okay, good. And then what we want to do is probably the fastest way to add it in to go to downloads and open it up, and then in here there's this API folder, and just copy that, the whole thing, and then you hit this little open file button up in the upper left hand corner, and then inside of here we're going to add a folder. So new folder, API, and then in there you can just paste the whole thing in. And then what you want to do is, so this hasn't officially been added to the project yet, so you go over here, and on this top Solution Explorer side here, there's an option that says Show All Files, and it's just in that bar. And then you can see the API is there, and you can just say include in this project. So it's all been included. All right, now to get started here, there's a few changes that while I was learning the API that I actually made to it, and I'm going to demonstrate those and explain why those changes needed to happen. So let's see here. Control find is trite. And I'm just searching the entire solution for is trites. And then you right click and you say go to definition. And in the regex, they have this sort of a query string. And what I found is that this has some issues, specifically with this little token here, the little caret is what it's called. So I'm going to actually demonstrate that so that you guys can see. So we're going to copy that whole thing, and then we're going to go here and type in regex, and then there's this nice site here where you can test regex. So, and I'll explain as to why I'm going to make the change here. So we'll just hit Control V. Now obviously with this stuff needs to be changed. So what this is doing is it says length equals 0. If that's true, put a 0 and a comma on the end there. Else, because this is ternary, the question mark is if, or is if it's true, and then the colon is else in the statement, and then it's just length.toString. So all we got to do here, all this is saying is match this for the length of the string. So we're going to replace this part so that we can test it in here. And we'll just say 100, because we don't really need that much to test with. And as you can notice here, none of this is getting picked up. And if we mouse over this, it says matches the beginning of a string or the beginning of a line if the multi-line flag M is enabled. This is something that in C# it's going to cause problems. And during my testing, it wouldn't register that trites were valid. So if we remove that, and that's the end or whatever, and then we increase this expression to be like, oh, I don't know, make sure it's all included. And we need to get some stuff to test with too. So let's see, let's check the trites. So another thing I'm going to search for, and of course it's showing here what the trite alphabet is, but might as well show. So alphabet, there's one there, and here's the trite alphabet, so we're just going to grab that. And then I'm not sure if, oh, that's, I see. So what's happening here is this is actually, yeah, we need it to match the length. So I don't know, how many is that in the trite alphabet? I think it's 27. So as you can see, it matches. If this was a lot, obviously you would increase this. It's probably not that many, yeah. But as you can see, this normally will show the length of the string. If it's 0, it's going to show this, which is just everything, I guess. So now as you can see also, if we add this little caret back, let's see, then it has problems with this specific number, even though it's still fine with that. So 120, or how many was it? It was like 150 or 160 or something of these. Doesn't match, does match. So that's something that like is a minor issue, but it will cause problems when that goes into the processing. At least that's what it has been in my experience. So all we got to do, I'm going to hit the navigate backwards thing so I can get, or actually I'll just control find. I had it open here, didn't I? Yeah. Oh well, that's fine. But anyway, so we're going to remove this, and I'll zoom in here so that the code's a little bit more visible. But we're going to remove this icon here, because when length is equal to 0, it'll be fine. When length is not equal to 0, it's going to have problems. It's also possible that all we needed was a comma as well. That may have been sufficient to fix it. But that's one thing we're going to change, because we want it to be able to recognize trites and not have errors with that. Another thing we want to do is find, I think it's, yep, here we go. So here's the other thing where there's some potential issues. So we're going to grab this thing here, this line, and we're going to test it, because I want to demonstrate for everything the reasons why I'm changing it, since Most people are a little bit against changing an API, but right now it's in beta, I think, yeah. And so in beta, you have to be able to adjust if something isn't optimal. So I'm going to go ahead and move this button onto the screen for testing, and we're going to demonstrate generating an address so that we can see the difference. So here's our line of code. Now obviously we're going to need an API so that this works. So we're going to need to go up to the top here and make a using statement. iota.lib.c#.api.core, and then also add using iota.lib.c#.api. And then I think we just need the regular API. We'll add the exceptions and utilities later, but for now we can just work with this. API. So you see this Iota API? This is the one you want. You don't want Iota Core API, because Iota API, and I'll show you here. And we'll go ahead and add in some parameters so it doesn't show an error. If I go to definition, you can see it inherits from Iota Core API. So Iota Core API is going to be missing some of the pieces. So you want to make sure that you get Iota API as your call. And then in here, we're going to do iota.bitfinx. I think it's .com. Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that. And then we're going to, just to make sure, we're going to do get node info response gni, I guess, get node info equals API dot get node info. And we're going to go ahead and change this one so that it's API dot. And then the seed, we're going to just use the seed for that, I guess. What I could do is, it'd probably be a good idea to also have something that generates a seed. But for now, we're just going to put a breakpoint on here. So I'm going to click the left-hand side of the screen, so that it doesn't execute, but it'll also pause so we can also check to make sure we have this correct. Oh, what is my error? Ah, we missed something. So we're going to go to project, and we're going to go to manage NuGet package. And we're going to go to browse, the browse tab, and then this is the one we want, newsoft.json. Okay. And then we also want rest sharp. So wait for this to install. It's installed, and then rest sharp. I believe, yep, this should be the correct one. Install. That's one thing that I sort of forgot about. Normally, you would go down to the package manager, and down here, and you would say install Iota. But since we're making changes to the code, we can't do it that way. So we have to actually manually install these things. So, all right, we can actually test it now. Hit that button, and then it pauses. And if we hover over get node info response, and then we just hit this down arrow, you can see all the node info on it. And yep, app version 1.24, etc., etc., etc. Looks good. Looks like we got it. So we're going to hit pause. Okay, now for the second part, we want to generate a seed so we can test this address thing. So probably the best practice here is to make ourselves a utilities. So I'm going to add to, not to the API, but just to the project in general. And you go to the right-click on Iota Wallet, go to Add, and then a class. And we'll call this wallet utility, I guess. Wallet utility. Seems good. I'm going to make it public. And in here, we're going to go, well, it'd probably be a static. There's no reason to have utilities not be static, so at least I think so. Yeah, I think it's fine being static. So we'll go ahead and add a class, public static void or string, and then we'll call it seed generate, and then return. And right now, while we're coding, we're going to leave that as that, but soon, let's see, probably the best way to go about this is we can do just a string builder. SB equals new string builder, and there should be sb.append. Yep, this is good. So second part that we need is a string and then alphabet. And then we want to add in the trite alphabet. And since we were just looking at that, I'll look it up again. Here it is. So we'll just copy this. All right. And then what we want to do is for int I equals 0, while I is less than 81, because it needs to be 81 trites long. Okay. I plus plus, so that we iterate through it. And then sb dot append, and then in here we're going to have alphabet and then a certain index. However, we want it to be random, so we need to add a random. So random r equals new random. And then in here we want r.next for an int value, starts at 0, it ends at alphabet.length. And let's see, is this inclusive? It's exclusive, so we're fine. If it was inclusive, we could theoretically have it try to access a number that's 1 too far. And the reason for that is because the length starts counting at 1, but arrays start counting at 0. So you can be off by 1 if it's inclusive. Exclusive means it will never be equal to alphabet.length. It'll always be 1 less. And then we're going to do this. And this will happen 81 times. And then we want sb.toString. And then what we're going to do is use this. So we can come back to here, and I can get rid of this extra, those extra windows. And then we're going to go string seed equals wallet utility dot seed generate, just like that. And then obviously, if you're generating a seed, you probably want to have a way to store it. So what we're going to do is we're going to store it as an environmental variable on your computer. And the reason we're going to do that is so that it can go directly from the program to your computer. And if you were to say share this program with someone else, if you have your seeds somehow incorporated, you don't really want that to be in the code, and you don't want to have it saved somewhere that's like accessible and whatever. Most people don't know where the environmental variables are, and later when we're dealing with .NET, we'll do something with encryption to have it safe and secure. But for now, we'll just store it as environmental variable. So, and this is also something that we're going to be using while we work with ASP.NET, because storing as environmental variables is safer than just having your API keys in the code. A lot of people still put their API keys, seeds, passwords, etc. in code, and that's not a best practice. So we're going to do it the correct way. So what we're going to go ahead and do here, we go environment dot set environment variable, and the variable is seed, or no, the variable is going to be what we call it, and then the value is seed. And then the last thing we need is environment target, and then dot just machine. You can do machine, process, or user. Machine is for the global computer. User is just for your user, so you probably would set it to user. Since I'm the only one who uses this computer, I'm just going to do machine. And process, I believe, is specific to that executable, but since we're in development, that potentially could change. So I'm just going to do machine for now. And then what we're going to call it is wallet seed. And then what we want to do is say, just to show you, you don't necessarily need to do it this way, but to show you how to get it back out, we're going to say string gen seed for the seed that was just generated. Or I could call it like store environment env seed is equal to environment, environment dot get environment variable. And then we're going to say the same as this, so we want to copy wallet seed, put it in there so that it knows which one we're dealing with. And then you want comma, and then environment variable target, so dot machine, you want to be the same target. Okay. And then what we'll do is put env seed. So I'm going to go over this stuff pretty quick here again, so that we cover the bases. We have Iota API, which creates a new API instance. We check to make sure that this is correct, that it can connect by doing get node info. We generate a seed using our custom utility. Then we set that to an environmental variable. That way we can use it later and it's stored there. We get it from the environmental variable to demonstrate that we can retrieve that. And then we also have something that calls to generate an address. And this we want to test because we want to know whether or not it'll work correctly or not. And then underneath here, well, I'm probably just going to put the breakpoint on this bracket here so that we can test this. All right, so we're going to give it a second. Oh, it's because I'm not running as administrator, am I? Machine. I wonder if I can just change that to user and that'd fix it. Let's see if that does it. If it doesn't, then it looks like it did it. All right, so here we go. We have an system out of range exception. And so this attempts to create, oh look, we can even see the seed we got. So we did successfully get this seed. And obviously I'm not going to be using this with funds in it. So you guys can try, you can log in with that seed all you want. But it created it, it stored it. I guess putting this as user is better when you're not running as administrator. We called the API get new address, and it's set to check for position 0 because it gives an array. And it didn't end up working. So that means that this value is null. So that's not good. So we're going to stop this, and we're going to fix it. So address has several overloads, so we're going to change those. So index. And the index, and I'll read this since it might be small on screen. It says optional. Key index to start search from. If the index is provided, the generation of the address is not deterministic. Okay, and so this is probably something we're going to set to, I think, 0, if I'm correct. And then next, checksum. Normally it's set to false. 9-tryte address checksum, so yeah, we'll set that to false. We don't need that. And then total, or this is the total number of addresses to generate. We only need 1. And then return all deterministically. Okay, we can just leave that as false as well. And then I'm going to put that back so it looks nice. And then we'll try it again to see if it works. If I've done everything correct, it should work. So it worked this time, and as you can see, there's a nice address here. So what happens is we search for this 0 position. We find this in the code. And I was talking about this earlier and why it's a problem. It's because, strictly speaking, sometimes it just doesn't work. In fact, I haven't seen it work, so it's something that needs to be replaced. So we're going to go to form, and we're going to grab this part, this whole line, copy it, and go back here and see this line. We're just going to go ahead and replace that. And so this needs to be changed to seed, though, because obviously this has a string value which is being used. So we need that to be seed. Now, what we could also do is check it to make sure that it has the appropriate number of addresses before taking 0, because in theory you could have it fail and then it would throw an error. So proper coding probably would check that first. So I think I'll go ahead and do that as well. And add list, we'll just call it for address list, equals, and then we're going to grab this out of there. And then, is it a string? Okay. Yep, it's an array. That's what I was missing. And then we'll say if add list dot length is greater than 0. And then we'll do string address, set that up here, equals empty for now. And then go in here and we'll go address is equal to add list 0. And that way we prevent it from throwing an error. Otherwise, and this is where you'd put throw new exception. But I think I'm going to just leave this blank for now, because I don't need to go in too depth. I think you guys understand that we want to be checking to make sure that there's an address that's available there. All right, good. So we've corrected the two issues I ran into when I was working in the Iota API, and we've set up some preliminary code that we use for testing. In future tutorials, I'm going to start breaking down the individual pieces and put together a wallet. So this is where I'm going to stop at the moment, and in future tutorials, I will cover the next part. So stay tuned.